You know what's killing more dreams than failure ever could? Comfort. Not the comfort you earn after a hard day's work, but the comfort you slip into before you've done anything worth remembering. I was standing in a shopping mall the other day, watching a healthy young man in his 20s stand in front of an automatic door that wasn't working. He stood there for a full 30 seconds, waiting for that door to open for him. 30 seconds. Finally, someone walked up, pushed the door open manually, and walked right through. This young man looked genuinely confused, as if the concept of opening a door with his own two hands was foreign to him. And that's when it hit me we'd become so accustomed to ease that even the smallest effort feels like an inconvenience. Here's what I've learned after decades of studying successful people and unsuccessful people. The difference between them isn't talent, isn't luck, isn't even opportunity. It's this: successful people have made discipline so much a part of their daily routine that laziness actually makes them uncomfortable. Read that again. Laziness makes them uncomfortable. Most people have it backwards. They're comfortable being lazy and uncomfortable being disciplined. They've trained themselves day after day, choice after choice, to seek the path of least resistance. And then they wonder why their life feels like it's going nowhere. Let me tell you something about human nature that nobody wants to admit. We are creatures of adaptation. Whatever we do repeatedly becomes our normal. If you sit on the couch every evening for 6 months, your body will start to crave that couch. Your mind will create elaborate justifications for why you deserve to sit there. You'll feel physically uncomfortable when you try to do something else. Your entire system will rebel against change because you've trained it to expect ease. But here's the beautiful part: it works the other way too. If you work out every morning for 6 months, your body will crave that workout. Miss a day and you'll feel off, incomplete, uncomfortable. The question isn't whether you're going to be comfortable or uncomfortable. The question is, what are you going to be comfortable with? I grew up in a time when work was just what you did. My father would come home exhausted, truly exhausted from a day of physical labor. But you know what? He slept like a baby. He had this deep satisfaction in his eyes that came from knowing he'd earned his rest. There was no guilt in his relaxation because he'd paid for it with effort. Somewhere along the way, we've lost that transaction. We've started trying to collect the benefits of hard work without putting in the work. We want the rest without the labor, the reward without the effort, the harvest without the planting. And let me tell you, that mathematics doesn't work. It never has, and it never will. The successful people I've met over the years, the ones who've built something substantial, they all share this one characteristic: they're allergic to laziness. It's not that they never rest, they do. But their rest is strategic, planned, earned. They rest to recharge, not to escape. There's a massive difference. When you rest because you've earned it, you come back stronger. When you rest because you're avoiding something, you come back weaker. One builds you up, the other tears you down. And your body knows the difference, even if your mind tries to lie about it. Think about this for a moment. When was the last time you did something difficult first thing in the morning, something that required real effort, and then felt worse for having done it? I'm not talking about feeling physically tired. I'm talking about that deep sense of regret or dissatisfaction. You can't think of a time, can you? Because it doesn't exist. Every single time you choose discipline over comfort, especially early in the day, you feel better about yourself. You stand a little taller. You have a little more confidence. You trust yourself a little more. But we forget this truth every single morning when the alarm goes off and we have to choose between the warm bed and the cold floor. The fascinating thing about discipline is that it's not really about the action itself. It's about the relationship you're building with yourself. Every time you do what you said you were going to do, especially when you don't feel like it, you're making a deposit in the trust account you have with yourself. Every time you break a promise to yourself, every time you choose ease over effort, you're making a withdrawal from that account. And here's what most people don't realize. Until it's too late, you can bankrupt that account. You can reach a point where you don't believe anything you tell yourself anymore because you've broken so many promises to yourself that your word means nothing. That's a dangerous place to be. I've watched people destroy their lives one small compromise at a time. They didn't wake up one day and decide to throw everything away. They just chose comfort over discipline so many times that eventually Comfort became their master and they became its servant. It starts innocently enough. You skip one workout because you're tired. You avoid one difficult conversation because it's uncomfortable. You put off one important task because you don't feel like doing it right now. Each choice seems insignificant in the moment. But these choices are like drops of water. One drop doesn't matter. 100 drops doesn't matter. But 1,000,000 drops can carve through stone. Your character, your life, is being carved right now by the accumulated weight of your daily choices. Here's a hard truth that somebody needs to tell you. Comfort is a drug, and like any drug, you build up a tolerance to it. The more you have, the more you need. The person who needs everything to be easy will find that eventually nothing is easy enough. They'll need more convenience, more shortcuts, more ways to avoid effort. And the cruel irony is that the more they get, the less satisfied they become. I've met people who have every modern convenience imaginable, and they're miserable. Why? Because humans aren't built for endless ease. We're built for challenge, for growth, for overcoming. When you remove all resistance from your life, you don't get happiness, you get depression. Let me share something with you that changed my entire perspective on this subject. I was talking to a very successful businessman years ago, a man who'd built a fortune from nothing. I asked him what his secret was, expecting some complex strategy or business insight. You know what he told me? He said, "Jim, I just decided one day that being lazy would hurt more than working hard." That's it. He'd flipped the script in his mind. Most people think working hard is painful and being lazy is pleasurable. He'd trained himself to feel pain when he was lazy and pleasure when he was working. The man had literally rewired his brain to make laziness uncomfortable. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to get to a point where laziness feels wrong, where sitting still when there's work to be done creates this nagging discomfort that won't go away until we take action. This isn't about being a workaholic or never resting. It's about changing your default setting. Right now, for most people, the default is to do nothing. They need motivation to take action. What we want is the opposite action should be your default, and you need a good reason to stop. Can you see the difference? One person needs to talk themselves into doing something. The other person needs to talk themselves into stopping. The beautiful thing about this transformation is that it doesn't require you to become a different person. You don't need a personality transplant. You just need to start small and be consistent. You need to understand that you're not trying to become disciplined, you're trying to make discipline your natural state. There's a difference. When you're trying to become something, it always feels forced, artificial. But when you're making something your natural state, you're just training your body and mind to prefer one thing over another. And your body and mind are highly trainable if you're patient and consistent with them. Most people fail at discipline because they try to do too much too fast. They wake up one Monday morning and decide they're going to completely transform their life. They're going to work out for 2 hours, eat perfectly, work 12 hours productively, read for an hour, and meditate. By Wednesday, they're exhausted and frustrated, and by Friday, they're back to their old patterns, now with the added weight of failure on their shoulders. This is backwards. You don't build discipline through massive action. You build it through small, consistent actions that gradually become non-negotiable parts of your routine. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wake up every morning and have a debate with yourself about whether you should brush your teeth. You don't need motivation. You don't need someone to inspire you. You just do it because it's what you do. That's the level we want to get to with the important disciplines in our life. We want exercising to be like brushing our teeth, not something we think about, just something we do. We want working on our most important project to be automatic, not something that requires a pep talk. But this only happens when we start small enough that success is almost guaranteed, and then we stack small success upon small success until we've built something substantial. Let me tell you about 2 farmers I knew growing up. Both inherited land from their fathers. Both had the same soil, the same weather, the same opportunities. One of them would get up every single morning and work his land. Didn't matter if he felt like it or not. Didn't matter if it was raining or if the sun was shining. He had a routine, and he stuck to it. The other farmer, he'd work when he felt motivated. He'd wait for the right conditions, the right mood, the right alignment of the stars. After 10 years, one farmer had built a thriving operation that supported his family and then some. The other was struggling to make ends meet, always wondering why things weren't working out for him. Same land, same weather, completely different results. The difference? One understood that small, consistent actions compound over time. The other kept waiting for the big breakthrough moment that never came. Here's what most people don't understand about success. It's boring. That's right, I said boring. Success is doing the same productive things over and over again until they produce extraordinary results. It's not exciting. It's not glamorous. There's no fireworks show when you make the right choice for the 400th day in a row. But those small choices, those tiny disciplines repeated daily, they're like pennies that compound into millions. You don't see the growth day to day. Sometimes you don't see it week to week. But look back over a year, over 5 years, and the difference is staggering. The problem is most people give up during the boring middle part, right when the compound interest is about to kick in. I learned something years ago that changed everything for me. Small hinges swing big doors. You don't need to make massive changes to transform your life. You just need to find the right small change and stick with it long enough for it to matter. What's a small hinge in your life? Maybe it's drinking water first thing in the morning instead of coffee. Maybe it's making your bed before you do anything else. Maybe it's reading 10 pages of a good book every single day. These things seem trivial. They seem too small to matter. But that's exactly why they work. They're small enough that you can't talk yourself out of doing them, but significant enough that doing them consistently changes you. The first hour of your day, let me tell you, that's where your entire life is determined. You show me what someone does in their first hour, and I'll show you what their life looks like. Most people wake up and immediately surrender control of their day. They grab their phone and start scrolling. They hit snooze 3 times. They rush around frantically trying to get out the door. They've lost the day before the day even started. But the disciplined person, they own that first hour. They wake up at the same time every day, not because they want to, but because that's what they do. They have a routine that sets them up for success. And here's the key, that routine doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be consistent. Let me share my morning routine with you, not because you should copy it, but because you need to understand the principle. I wake up at the same time every single day. Not most days, every day, weekends included. My body doesn't know the difference between Tuesday and Saturday, and neither should my discipline. First thing I do is make my bed. It takes 2 minutes. But those 2 minutes tell my brain that we're in execution mode now, not contemplation mode. Then I drink a full glass of water. My body has been without water for 8 hours. It needs that hydration. Then I spend 20 minutes reading something that feeds my mind, something that makes me think, not the news, not social media, but something of substance. After that, I exercise. Doesn't have to be an hour at the gym. Sometimes it's just a 20-minute walk. The point isn't the intensity, the point is the consistency. By the time most people are hitting snooze for the 3rd time, I've already won the day. I've already proven to myself that I do what I say I'm going to do. Now here's where it gets interesting. When you start your day with discipline, when you stack those small wins early, something happens to your psychology. You start to crave more wins. Discipline breeds discipline. It's like momentum. The hardest part is getting started, but once you're moving, staying in motion becomes easier. I've seen this happen over and over again. Someone starts with one small morning discipline, maybe just making their bed. Within a month, they've added exercise. Within 3 months, they've transformed their entire morning routine. Within a year, they're a completely different person. And it all started with making the bed. But let me warn you about something. You're going to hear people talk about the 21-day rule, how it takes 21 days to form a habit. That's garbage. I don't know who came up with that number, but they were either lying or delusional. Real discipline, the kind that transforms your life, takes much longer than 21 days. Some disciplines take 6 months before they feel natural. Some take a year. Some take several years. And you know what? That's okay. We're not looking for quick fixes here. We're looking for permanent change. We're looking to rewire who you are at your core. Think about it this way. There are 3 phases to building real discipline. Phase 1 is resistance. This is where most people live and where most people quit. In this phase, every single day is a fight. Your body resists. Your mind resists. Everything in you wants to go back to the old comfortable patterns. This phase can last anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months, depending on the discipline and the person. You've got to know this going in. You've got to expect the resistance. Because if you think it's going to be easy, you'll quit the first time it gets hard. And it will get hard. Phase 2 is rhythm. This is where things start to click. You're not fighting yourself quite as much. The discipline is starting to feel more natural, more like just part of your day rather than this huge obstacle you have to overcome. You've done it enough times that your body and mind are starting to accept it as normal. But here's the trap. Rhythm feels good, so people think they've made it. And that's exactly when they slide back into old patterns. Rhythm is not the destination. Rhythm is just the middle point. Phase 3 is reflex. This is what we're after. This is where the discipline becomes so ingrained that not doing it feels wrong. This is where laziness becomes uncomfortable. At the reflex stage, you don't think about whether you're going to do the thing, you just do it automatically. Your body and mind expect it. This phase doesn't usually kick in until 6 months to a year of consistency, sometimes longer. But once you reach it, the discipline maintains itself. You've rewired your operating system. Most people never get here because they quit during the resistance phase or they get complacent during the rhythm phase. You want to know the secret to making discipline easy? Make laziness hard. Let me explain what I mean. Right now, in your life, the easy path is probably the wrong path. It's easy to stay in bed. It's easy to eat junk food. It's easy to skip the workout. We need to flip that equation. We need to engineer our environment so that the disciplined choice is the easy choice and the lazy choice requires effort. Here's an example. If you want to stop eating junk food, don't rely on willpower. Willpower is a muscle that gets tired. Instead, don't bring junk food into your house. Make it so that if you want junk food, you have to get dressed, get in your car, drive to the store, and buy it. Add friction to the wrong choice. At the same time, make healthy food readily available. Prep your meals on Sunday so that during the week, eating healthy is actually easier than eating poorly. Same principle applies to everything. You want to exercise in the morning? Sleep in your workout clothes, put your shoes right by the bed, remove every obstacle between waking up and working out, make it so easy that you'd have to actively sabotage yourself not to do it. You want to read more? Put a book on your pillow before you go to bed so that when you come home the next day, it's the first thing you see. Remove the TV remote from the living room, put it in a drawer in another room. Small adjustments to your environment that make the right choice the path of least resistance. I've watched people completely transform their lives with this strategy. They stop trying to outmuscle their environment with willpower, and instead they design their environment to support their goals. And here's what happens. Within a few months, the disciplines feel effortless. Not because they've developed superhuman willpower, but because they've removed the friction from doing the right thing and added friction to doing the wrong thing. They've made discipline the default setting. There comes a moment in every person's transformation when something shifts. You stop saying, I'm trying to eat healthy, and you start saying, I don't eat that. You stop saying, I'm working on being disciplined, and you start saying, I'm a disciplined person. That shift from doing to being, that's where real power lives. Because when discipline becomes your identity, you don't have to make decisions anymore. The decision is already made by who you are. I watched a friend of mine go through this years ago. For months, he'd tell people he was on a diet. He was white-knuckling it, resisting temptation, fighting himself every day. Then one day, someone offered him a donut, and he said, no thanks, I don't eat those. Not I can't, or I'm trying not to, just I don't. That small language shift represented a massive internal change. He wasn't fighting anymore. He'd become someone who simply didn't do certain things. Your words create your world. Listen to how you talk about yourself. Are you always trying to do things? Are you working on being better? That language keeps you stuck in the doing phase. You're perpetually in transition, never arriving. Start declaring who you are, not what you're attempting. I'm a person who exercises every morning, not I'm trying to exercise more. Can you feel the difference? One is solid ground. The other is quicksand. When you declare your identity, your actions line up naturally. You're not forcing yourself to act a certain way. You're simply acting consistent with who you are. Now let's talk about what nobody wants to discuss, the inevitable fall. You're going to mess up. Doesn't matter how committed you are, doesn't matter how good your system is, you're going to have a day where you don't do what you said you'd do. And this is where most people completely derail. They fall once, and instead of getting back up, they stay down. They think, well, I've already ruined it, might as well quit. They turn one bad day into a bad week into a bad month. Here's what you need to understand. The fall isn't the problem. Staying down is the problem. I've failed more times than I can count. The difference between me and someone who's still stuck is that I get back up faster than I fall down. The real battle isn't preventing the fall. It's what you do in the 24 hours after you fall. That's the window that determines everything. You miss your workout Monday morning? What you do Tuesday morning is what matters. You eat poorly today? What you eat tomorrow is what counts. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is to shrink the gap between when you fall and when you get back up. Successful people aren't people who never fail. They're people who fail forward faster than everyone else. They don't waste time beating themselves up, dwelling on the mistake, making excuses. They acknowledge it, learn from it, and move on. Quick recovery is the skill nobody teaches you, but it's the one that matters most. Let me tell you something about the people you surround yourself with. They're either lifting your standards or lowering them. There's no neutral ground. You show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. If everyone around you is comfortable being lazy, guess what? You're going to feel weird being disciplined. You're going to feel like you're doing too much, like you need to relax, like you should just enjoy life. But if you surround yourself with people who have high standards, people who expect excellence from themselves, suddenly your discipline doesn't feel extreme, it feels normal. This is why changing your life often requires changing your associations. Not because your old friends are bad people, but because they're comfortable with a level of mediocrity that you're trying to escape. I've seen talented people waste their potential because they stayed in environments that celebrated comfort. And I've seen average people achieve extraordinary things because they found environments that celebrated effort. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. Always has been, always will be. If you're serious about becoming disciplined, you need to audit your associations. Who are you spending time with? What do they value? What do they celebrate? Are they encouraging your growth or your comfort? These are hard questions, but they're necessary questions. Here's something that kills more discipline than anything else: boredom. People start strong. They've got enthusiasm, they've got motivation, they're excited about the change. But after a few months of doing the same thing every day, the novelty wears off. It becomes monotonous. And monotony is where discipline goes to die. The solution isn't to abandon the discipline, it's to add intelligent variety within consistency. You can keep the goal steady while changing how you pursue it. You want to exercise every day? Great. But you don't have to do the same workout every day. Monday might be running, Tuesday might be weights, Wednesday might be swimming. The discipline stays you exercise every day, but the boredom goes because there's variety in the execution. I've maintained certain disciplines for decades now. You know how? I keep the core commitment, but I vary the expression. I read every single day, but I don't read the same type of book every day. I exercise every single day, but I don't do the same exercise every day. The principle remains constant, the practice evolves. This is how you sustain discipline for years, for decades, for a lifetime. You respect the boredom, you acknowledge it, and then you outsmart it by building variety into your consistency. The final thing I want to talk about in this section is the conversation you have with yourself. Right now, while you're reading this, there's a voice in your head. That voice is either your greatest ally or your worst enemy. Disciplined people have learned to control that voice. When it's time to do something difficult, their internal voice says, "This is who we are. This is what we do." When things get hard, their voice says, "We've done harder. We can handle this." But undisciplined people, their voice is a saboteur. It says, "Just this once won't hurt." It says, "You deserve a break." It says, "Start tomorrow." You've got to train that voice like you'd train a dog. When it tells you to quit, you tell it no. When it makes excuses, you don't argue, you just act. Over time, that voice learns. It stops fighting you. It starts supporting you. But this only happens if you consistently prove to yourself that action comes before feeling, that commitment trumps comfort. You know what separates people who maintain discipline for a lifetime from people who burn out after 6 months? Systems. The people who last They stop relying on motivation and they start building systems that run on autopilot. They create structures in their life that make discipline self-sustaining. Think about it like this. You don't think about breathing because your body has a system for it. You don't debate whether your heart should beat because there's a system running that. We need to build the same kind of automatic systems for our success. When you have the right systems in place, discipline stops being something you do and becomes something that happens. Here's what I mean by a system. Let's say you want to save money. That's exhausting, and eventually you'll crack. But a system automatically transfers 10% of every paycheck into savings before you even see it. You're not making a decision every time you made one decision that keeps executing itself. Same principle works for everything. You want to eat better? Don't decide what to eat every meal. That's decision fatigue waiting to happen. Instead, meal prep on Sundays. One decision, executed once, that feeds you well all week. Systems eliminate the daily battle. They remove willpower from the equation entirely. Now let's connect this to something everyone cares about: money. You want to know the real difference between wealthy people and broke people? It's not intelligence. It's not luck. It's daily discipline around money. The wealthy person automatically saves before they spend. They invest consistently, not when they feel like it. They educate themselves about money regularly. They track their expenses. These aren't occasional activities, they're automatic systems. The broke person does the opposite. They spend first, save whatever's left, which is usually nothing. They invest sporadically, based on emotion. They avoid looking at their finances because it's uncomfortable. Both people have the same 24 hours. Different disciplines, different results. Wealth is built in boring, repeated, disciplined actions that compound over years. But here's something crucial that most people miss. You can't maintain discipline in your business or your finances if your body is falling apart. Your physical health is the foundation everything else is built on. I don't care how disciplined you are with your work. If you're not disciplined with your body, eventually everything collapses. I've watched it happen over and over. Someone builds a successful business while destroying their health. Then their health fails, and the business fails with it because they don't have the energy or clarity to run it anymore. Your body isn't separate from your success. It's the vehicle your success travels in. You neglect it at your own peril. The discipline of taking care of your body isn't complicated. You don't need a fancy gym or an expensive trainer. You need to move every day. You need to eat real food, not processed garbage. You need to sleep enough. You need to drink water. These are simple things. But simple doesn't mean easy. Simple means you can't hide behind complexity as an excuse. You know what you need to do. The question is whether you're doing it. And if you're not, everything else you're trying to build is on a weak foundation. There's also a spiritual dimension to discipline that people don't talk about enough. I'm not talking about religion necessarily. I'm talking about the connection between self-control and self-respect. Every time you exercise discipline, you're telling yourself, I matter enough to do this right. Every time you choose ease over effort, you're saying the opposite. Discipline is ultimately an act of self-love, not self-punishment. You discipline yourself because you respect who you're becoming. You hold yourself to high standards because you believe you're worth it. This spiritual aspect, this internal dignity that comes from keeping your word to yourself, it's what sustains discipline when everything else fails. Let me ask you something. What are you leaving behind? When you're gone, what will people remember about how you lived? Will they remember someone who took the easy path, who always chose comfort, who had potential but never pushed? Or will they remember someone who lived with intention, who did hard things, who showed them what discipline looks like in action? Your discipline isn't just about you. It's about everyone watching you, your kids, your employees, your friends. You're either teaching them that discipline matters or that comfort matters more. There's no neutral position. Your life is a lesson whether you intend it to be or not. So here's where we land. Discipline isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a direction you choose every single day. Tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up and face the same choice you faced today: comfort or growth, ease or excellence, laziness or discipline. What will you choose?